We turn now to that big new release of UFO documents tonight. President Trump telling the public to have fun deciding for itself what's going on.
This year in May, the U.S. Pentagon declassified the most shocking UFO files, and they changed everything we knew about UFOs.
I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange.
Strange orbs entering military airspaces, clearest UFO sightings, and this bizarre 8-pointed UAP that appeared over the Middle East. Here's what the government had been hiding all along.
7, go ahead.
On October 1st, 2023, a U.S. military platform picked up something unusual off the coast of Thessaloniki, Greece. The infrared sensor locked onto an unidentified aerial phenomenon flying just above the ocean surface. And what it did next shocked the analysts. It was making sharp 90-degree turns at nearly 80 miles per hour. No known aircraft changes direction so sharply like that at those speeds. Not without tearing itself apart, as this would create a near infinite amount of G-force. Even now, no one has officially explained what it was. UAE mysterious object. This one came from the United Arab Emirates in October 2023. A military infrared sensor caught a strange, solid-shaped object moving through the sky at incredible speed, and the analysts watching the footage couldn't agree on what it even was. The shape did not match any drone or aircraft in service. It moved with too much precision and speed, which surprisingly increased even more after some time. The Pentagon marked it unresolved, which means to this day, no one in any official capacity has been able to identify it. Military UFO. This footage shows the inside of a heavily secured military facility, although its location is not known, and there are soldiers and scientists surrounding a UFO. They seem to be examining it closely.
Okay, since they are releasing UFO files, I can show you guys this beauty right here.
For years, there have been rumors that the U.S. government retrieved a flying saucer that had appeared over restricted airspace near Groom Lake, and that they moved it to their facility for study. So it seemed like this was what the rumors were about. Mosul orb footage. On July 12, 2022, an MQ-9 Reaper drone was on a routine surveillance mission over Mosul, Iraq, when it picked up something it wasn't looking for. The footage, logged as Mission Report 7750816, shows a small metallic orb moving at high speed across the frame. It didn't have any wings or a propulsion system. It wasn't behaving like a drone either, and it wasn't matching any known aircraft. This orb is now one of the most studied UAP clips in Pentagon history, and it still hasn't been explained. Arabian Gulf anomaly. During standard operational surveillance over the Arabian Gulf in 2020, a sensor picked up something moving in a fast, linear path, but no such craft had been in their logs. We don't know much else about this case because the original mission personnel filed no written or verbal description at the time of the recording. For a military operation to produce footage with zero documentation, something about this made people uneasy. Trump's strange response. Trump's recent claims have been very interesting.
We turn now to that big new release of UFO documents tonight. President Trump telling the public to have fun deciding for itself what's going on.
When reporters asked Donald Trump about Barack Obama's comments that aliens were real, Trump didn't confirm or deny. Listen to this.
Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know?
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
He said Obama had shared classified information he wasn't supposed to. That response was more revealing than a straight answer, especially since this leaked video has been making rounds on the internet. It shows government officials, including Trump, walking alongside an alien. If this is real, that means the government was still hiding a lot. 3. Object formation. In 2023, an infrared sensor picked up not one, but 3 separate areas of contrast moving through the sky together. What made this sighting stand out was the formation. All 3 objects maintained a perfectly fixed position relative to each other as they moved. They seemed to be moving as a single, coordinated unit, which is why experts thought they could belong to one larger object keeping them together, but no one knows for sure. This wasn't even the strangest thing in the files. Wait till you see the next one. Double orb object. This case begins with something hovering completely still in the sky, and then a second, much brighter shape moves past it. The infrared sensor reacted to the heat difference immediately. When operators zoomed in, the second object turned out to be 2 bright white orbs moving in perfect sync with each other. The first object continued hovering. The 2 orbs kept moving, and by the time anyone could decide what they were seeing, the orbs were gone. Space football encounter. Over the Pacific Ocean in 2024, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command reported one of the strangest shaped UAPs ever recorded. They nicknamed it Space Football. It had 3 projections sticking out of it, 1 pointing straight up and 2 angled downward like the legs of a tripod. There were no wings, rotors, or visible engines. It maintained a stable flight path over open water, which means whatever was keeping it airborne wasn't anything conventional. The footage was filed, studied, and officially left unresolved. Trump on Joe Rogan. When Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan's show, the topic eventually landed on UFOs, and Trump didn't laugh it off. He said he had spoken with numerous military officers and pilots, and every single one of them confirmed they had seen something up there.
I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane.
Something they couldn't explain. Do you think they all saw UFOs and aliens up there? Sighting in Greece. In October 2023, over the Aegean Sea near Athens, Greece, a UAP was flying low over the ocean's surface and heading directly toward land. The military sensor tracked it steadily until it reached the coastline. The moment it reached land and blended into the terrain below, the camera lost it completely. The report noted the object showed no heat trail, no engine output, nothing that would explain how it stayed airborne, and whatever it was, kept flying toward a populated coastline at low altitude. Gemini 7 bogey. During the 1965 Gemini 7 mission, astronauts Frank Borman and Jim Lovell reported seeing bogeys near their spacecraft as they passed over Antigua. They were clear about one thing: it wasn't their rocket booster, since they could still see the booster separately. The bogeys were distinct, unidentified objects surrounded by many small particles drifting alongside the capsule, although we don't see them in the video.
Gemini 7 here, you want 98? Last clear, 7, go ahead.
Forest saucer sighting. A man walking through the dense tree lines of Gifford-Pinchot National Forest in Washington state was completely alone on the road when he noticed it. A dark flying saucer hovering above the tree line with bright lights lining its underside. Its lights glowed brighter as it appeared right over him, but to his relief, it just flew away instead of doing anything dangerous. Iraq jellyfish UAP. This is the Enhanced Iraq Jellyfish UAP, and it's one of the most disturbing entries in the entire Declassified collection, US. Military personnel captured it over Baghdad, Iraq, and the object had strange tendril-like appendages trailing behind it as it moved through the sky. The thing is, it was completely invisible on conventional radar. Only heat-sensitive infrared cameras could detect it at all. That's not a design flaw. That's a deliberate feature. Whatever this thing was, it was built or evolved to stay hidden from the systems we depend on to keep our skies secure. Wright-Patterson Blue Craft. In April 2026, a glowing blue craft appeared over Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. The footage shows it hovering in the sky and spinning slowly, while glowing with an even blue light before slowly drifting east and vanishing. Wright-Patterson has been at the center of UFO rumors for decades. It's the alleged home of Hangar 18, where recovered crash debris and possibly non-human remains are said to have been stored since the late 1940s. Whether that's true or not, a glowing unidentified craft appearing over that specific base is not something easy to write off as coincidence. Area 51. Exit footage. The camera was pointed at a hangar at Area 51 in Nevada. What came out was unmistakably a disc-shaped aircraft. It emerged slowly and began flying higher. Now, those who see this footage think the government was dealing with aliens, and this was a secret base for them to land their UFOs. If that's true, that means they could be sharing information and technology with aliens as well. Syria heat signature. In October 2024, U.S. military infrared sensors captured an unidentified phenomenon over northern Syria. The first image showed a red circular heat signature that analysts couldn't match to anything in their system. The second angle revealed strange white highlights. Look carefully on top of the screen, like something was interfering with the sensor itself. It wasn't something that could be caused by man-made aircraft or nuclear technology, which was really confusing. Apollo 12 objects. Theories or blurry screenshots. These are official archival photographs taken on the surface of the moon by Apollo 12 astronauts in 1969. And if you look carefully at the highlighted areas, there are some mysterious objects in the frame. They don't match any known satellite, debris, or celestial body. And now experts think they could be alien probes or UFOs. Apollo 17 triangle. During the 1972 Apollo 17 missions, the crew reported seeing 3 mysterious dots arranged in a perfect triangular formation. A new analysis of the original mission imagery concluded that these could be physical objects, not just lens artifacts or light distortion. The second image from the same mission shows a bright blue light in a long vertical formation that has no explanation. Even the most trained experts haven't been able to identify them. Windmill field object. The United States Indo-Pacific Command submitted this report in 2024. It's 1 minute and 39 seconds of infrared footage recorded from a military platform somewhere over the Pacific, and there's a small object in it that none of their analysts could identify. What stands out is how it keeps a completely steady pace as the sensor tracks it across the frame. The next declassified UFO video is even more shocking. Water surface anomaly. This video shows a solid white shape moving over water in the Middle East and behaving in a way that made the camera operator visibly struggle to follow it. The movement was unpredictable in the truest sense. It was just completely unlike anything that follows known flight physics. The operator kept shifting between modes, trying to maintain a lock on it. At some point, the object simply moved out of range. What was it doing above that water? Where did it go? Nobody has an answer to that. Iraq glide path. There's not much information about this footage from December 2022. It shows an encounter over Baghdad, Iraq, captured by the U.S. Central Command using an infrared sensor on a military platform. The mission report says the object was flying from west to east. It glided across the camera's view in a smooth, uninterrupted arc, no deviation. And this short 10 seconds clip confused everyone. Iraq fast mover. I want you to focus on the rightmost side of the screen. The object entered this airspace in Iran from the right side of the frame and shot toward the upper left at a speed that gave operators almost no time to respond. It moved so fast they couldn't lock onto it long enough to run any analysis. They couldn't determine if it was a drone or a UAP because they simply didn't have time. Disc-shaped heading east. This declassified clip shows a dark, disc-shaped object flying from west to east in a smooth, measured trajectory. It didn't accelerate or decelerate and kept moving in a specific path. The footage was reviewed by military analysts who couldn't match it to any registered aircraft or drone in the region. Flat object. On the 1st of May, 2022, a military U.S. platform operating somewhere over the Middle East captured this 5 seconds footage. A strange flat object moved across the sensor's field of view. It went left to right really fast. Did you see it? Although some experts tried dismissing this sighting as a bird, others don't agree with that because it didn't seem to have any wings, beak, etc. What do you think? Erratic Middle East object. Captured over the Middle East in 2020, this 5-minute-long infrared encounter is one of the most unsettling in the declassified files. The object moved erratically, constantly changing direction in ways that had the camera operator switching between different sensor modes just to keep it in frame. It kept slipping out of view and then reappearing somewhere unexpected. It's shocking how a trained military sensor operator was struggling to track it. Piloted disc project. This one looks like a military experiment. The footage shows a metallic craft hovering low above the ground inside a military zone, and there's an officer sitting inside it and seemed to be piloting it. The design is unmistakably like a UFO with its round shape and no visible rotors. For many years, there have been rumors that the US government was trying to replicate alien aircraft, and this might be proof of one of those experiments. Nevada glowing orbs. Tourists on a remote stretch of Highway 375 near Rachel, Nevada, came across something that stopped them cold. Hovering above the desert floor were glowing orbs, appearing one by one and then vanishing just as quietly.
What you need to do is you need to get them to move and perform correctly. You have to get them up and get them moving. This is not going to help if he's cold.
They glowed without flickering and without any visible source of power. It's also worth remembering that the Apollo 17 crew reported nearly identical orbs during their lunar mission. The only difference was that they were formed in a triangle. That's not a coincidence that's easy to dismiss. Moscow defense failure. On April 9th, 2025, a mysterious aircraft appeared over a military base near Moscow, Russia. The lights on it were unmistakable. Russian defense forces scrambled immediately, deploying everything they had to bring it down, and nothing worked. The aircraft drifted through their airspace completely unaffected by every defense system they activated against it. Whatever technology was protecting it was operating at a level that made Russian military hardware look outdated. It eventually left on its own terms. The Russian government tried to keep this quiet, but didn't fully succeed. Base alien footage. This leaked clip has been going viral now, and it shows something that lines up disturbingly well with what whistleblowers have been saying for years. The footage appears to show an alien being inside a facility. For decades, former intelligence officers have claimed that retrieved non-human specimens were being held and studied at undisclosed locations across the American Southwest. The government has never confirmed it at that time, but after seeing this, people believe the rumors were correct. Samford's public statement. In 1952, Air Force Intelligence Chief Major General John Samford stood before the press and addressed the growing public anxiety over flying saucer reports. He acknowledged that out of 12,000 reports filed, most were hoaxes or misidentified aircraft and natural phenomena.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them.
He concluded they weren't dangerous to national security and that no U.S. agency had secretly developed them, but the recent files suggest otherwise. UAE infrared footage. 3 years ago, in October, U.S. Central Command captured 43 seconds of footage over Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. For almost 2 minutes, the frame showed nothing. Then, a dark, solid object appeared, moving steadily, almost deliberately, across the sensor's field of view. The military operator tracked it the entire time, but couldn't identify it. The camera kept losing it, regaining it, losing it again. Orbs over the ocean. A naval surveillance operation captured this footage somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Virginia Beach. Multiple glowing orbs appeared above the water's surface, moving at coordinated speeds, with no visible connection between them.
What is that? Anybody tell me what that is?
The ship's crew reported the sighting to command. The orbs didn't approach the vessel. They didn't flee either. They simply moved parallel to the water and eventually disappeared beyond the camera's range. Naval UAP encounters like this one have been growing in number since 2014, and most of them have no explanation. Black Knight Theory. Since the 1960s, researchers have talked about an unexplained object in polar orbit as proof of extraterrestrial surveillance. It became known as the Black Knight satellite. Recently, NASA footage and astronaut reports have spotted this dark object that doesn't match any registered satellite.
God, what is that there? What is that? Don't tangle. That is kind of light.
This video has circulated among UAP communities as a possible visual match to the Black Knight, although it hasn't been confirmed yet. Open discussion. Now it's time to openly discuss the most shocking videos from the recent Declassified files. Back in 2013, an infrared sensor aboard a US military platform captured something over the Middle East that still has no official explanation. The craft had an 8-pointed star shape, and it left a trail of white smoke behind it as it moved erratically through the airspace. The footage lasted nearly 2 minutes. What makes this even stranger is that the shape looks almost identical to a mysterious aircraft that later appeared in KGB archive footage from a Soviet hangar. There were many rumors about the Russians dealing with mysterious spy aircraft made using alien technology. So, do you think this was one of those aircrafts? Shape-shifting aircraft? The video shows 2 fighter jets chasing a metallic flying saucer over restricted airspace in the American Southwest, and what happened next defied everything those pilots were trained to expect. The saucer began to change shape, gradually shifting its structure until it looked exactly like a conventional aircraft. Look closely. Then it simply flew away, indistinguishable from the planes around it. The pilots lost it completely. If a craft can alter its own physical form to blend into its environment, that means it can't be from this planet! Nazi Honebu footage. This black and white film is claimed to document the Honebu Eye, an alleged disc-shaped aircraft reportedly developed by Nazi Germany around 1939. The craft was said to measure roughly 25 meters across, carry a crew of 8, and use an experimental propulsion system tied to so-called Vril technology. Supporters believe this footage predates the famous 1947 UFO wave by nearly a decade. Skeptics argue the Honebu story is post-war mythology, but this footage looks more than just myth. Capitol building orbs. In 2005, multiple bright, glowing orbs appeared behind the United States Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and the way they moved made every natural explanation fall apart immediately. They were all traveling at the exact same speed, heading in the exact same direction, in perfect synchronization with each other. No weather balloon or natural phenomena travel like that. They eventually went out of sight, and not a single official agency offered a statement about what they were. Object from the moon. Someone recording a close-up shot of the moon through a telescope captured something that shouldn't be there. A disc-shaped object emerged from the lunar surface and moved away from it. For decades, former NASA contractors and researchers have suggested that activity on the far side of the moon is being quietly monitored. Whether that's true or not, footage of an object coming out of the moon's surface feels very suspicious when you know those claims exist. TR-3B sighting. A military plane was landing on the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, and in the background, barely visible but unmistakably there, was a massive triangular craft hovering above the deck. The shape matches what many conspiracy theorists have called the TR-3B, a rumored black spy aircraft said to use magnetic field disruption for propulsion, built with alien technology. The government has never confirmed the TR-3B exists, but this site is really suspicious. Helicopter UAP tracking. Military officers recorded this from their helicopter somewhere over the American Southwest, and the object they captured beneath them didn't belong in any flight registry. It was dark and fla. The crew tracked it for as long as they could before it shifted direction and disappeared below their line of sight.
You will follow 570. Your signal is Charlie. Follow your interval of 5.
Ground teams were alerted. Whatever it was, it had been operating in controlled military airspace without authorization, without a transponder, and apparently without any concern about being seen. Sphere above the clouds. Air Force officials spotted a dark metallic sphere moving above the cloud layer over Luke Air Force Base in Glendale, Arizona. It had a smooth, reflective surface with lights blinking at irregular intervals. The speed it was traveling at when it was first detected was well outside the performance range of any known drone or aircraft. They tracked it for several minutes before it accelerated beyond their instruments' ability to follow. LAPD pursuit footage. On October 19, 2019, an LAPD air support helicopter was on a routine patrol over San Fernando, Los Angeles, when it spotted something small and fast moving through the air ahead of them. One citizen below recorded as the helicopter began chasing the mysterious aircraft.
Is it a drone?
The aircraft stayed just far enough ahead to avoid being caught. The clip ends before anyone could see where it went. The LAPD never released a formal statement about this encounter. Phoenix Lights. A craft appeared over Bakersfield, California one night with a line of lights stretching across one side of it. It was eerily similar to the formation that made the Phoenix Lights of 1997 one of the most witnessed UAP events in American history. Back in '97, thousands of people across Phoenix, Arizona reported a massive, slow-moving object with a V-shaped arrangement of lights. It was never officially explained. This newer footage brings that same feeling back, that years later, the same shape was passing through the sky.
Outline of something. It's moving.
Mountain range craft. Someone hiking near the Maroon Bells Mountains outside Aspen, Colorado, spotted a craft hovering between two peaks at an altitude no civilian helicopter should be navigating without clearance. The area has no airbase within 50 miles. The craft had a shape that didn't match any commercial or military aircraft the hiker could identify, and it wasn't moving the way any rotor-based aircraft moves. It was stable, silent, and completely still, against a very high wind. Since no airbase could account for it, the question of whether it was man-made or something else became one nobody in the area could answer. 3 orbs in the mountains. In the San Juan Mountains near Ouray, Colorado, in one of the most remote spots of the American West, someone recorded 3 glowing orange orbs hanging in the night sky. 2 were stationary. The one in the middle moved horizontally at a slow, measured pace. They didn't look or behave like any natural phenomena either. So what were they? Storm over the base. On the night of March 17th, 2023, during a severe thunderstorm over Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia Beach, Virginia, an oddly shaped object appeared above the facility. Storms often ground aircraft and shut down base operations entirely, which makes the presence of any airborne object during one deeply unusual. The footage shows the object holding its position against powerful wind and heavy rain, and it disappeared once the storm ended. Moon base activity. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter captured this in March 2023, and the imagery raised more questions than it answered. A crater on the lunar surface appeared to open. A small object emerged from it. Moments later, a faint reddish glow began rising from a separate section of the moon's surface, pulsing steadily, like something generating heat beneath the crust. The glow continued for several minutes before fading. The crater, the object, the pulsing light, all three were really bizarre. Objects past the moon. Someone with a high-powered telescope aimed at the moon captured a fleet of objects crossing in front of its surface. They weren't asteroids, since asteroids don't travel in formation, and they don't maintain consistent spacing while moving at controlled, identical speeds. They moved across the lunar face in a way that was too precise and too coordinated to be debris or space rock. Could it be a UFO fleet? Comment below. Upscaled sighting footage. This is an enhanced and upscaled version of a UAP sighting from 2007 that originally appeared in a low resolution to analyze effectively. Once the footage was processed, the detail changed how researchers were interpreting the original clip entirely. The shape became more defined. What looked like a blur in the original turned out to have a specific geometry that doesn't match any aircraft profile that they knew about. It had a metallic structure, but there was no cockpit or rotors. Now they think it was an alien aircraft. Window seat encounter. A woman on a commercial flight somewhere over the Midwest looked out her window and found herself staring at a light metallic UFO hovering just outside the plane. Although it didn't have any wings or rotors like a plane would, it still managed to keep its pace matched with the airplane. It stayed there long enough for her to record it before it accelerated and disappeared from view. She uploaded this video so that officials could give an answer to what that was, but no one has responded yet. A farmer walked through wreckage scattered across his land when he noticed something moving between the debris. Sitting there was a tiny creature with pale skin, oversized dark eyes, and a body so thin it barely looked real. The farmer carefully lifted it while someone nearby snapped photos of the whole thing. And now, here's where it gets interesting. Those images somehow leaked online before officials reportedly arrived at the scene. After that, the creature completely vanished from public view. Escort formation. People in Florida spotted several disc-shaped objects flying together across the evening sky. That already would have been strange enough. But a few seconds later, viewers noticed something else behind them. Military helicopters. They were flying right alongside the objects, matching their speed almost perfectly. And I'll tell you why people found that unsettling. The helicopters didn't seem confused or alarmed. If anything, it looked coordinated. That footage immediately split the internet into two camps. Some thought the military was escorting the craft somewhere. Others believed this was proof the government had known about these objects for years already.
What is going on?
Silent object. A man in Brazil stepped onto his rooftop and noticed something strange above the mountains nearby. Hovering over the woods was a disc-shaped object sitting completely motionless in the air. It stayed low enough for him to clearly make out the shape. Now here's where it gets interesting. After several moments, the object slowly lifted upward, climbed back into the sky, and disappeared from view. And look! We're barely scratching the surface. What's coming up next is going to surprise you. So make sure you're subscribed to WOW so you don't miss the part they really don't want you to see. Keep watching. Cylinder in sky. A man in Colombia recorded a strange object moving across the sky, and nobody has been able to properly explain it since. The object looked long and dark, almost cylindrical, with a glowing green light shining from underneath it the entire time. It moved steadily through the sky without behaving like a normal aircraft. No blinking plane lights, no sound people could recognize, just this strange shape drifting overhead with that eerie green glow underneath it. Some people thought it could have been experimental technology. Others believed it looked like something not from here at all. Pakistan disc. Now, this next sighting came out of Pakistan, where a local happened to glance up at the evening sky and notice something sitting between the clouds that absolutely should not have been there. Hovering above him was a dark object holding perfectly still in the air. and I'll tell you why the footage unsettled people. The object looked clear enough that there was no mistaking the shape, but almost as soon as he fully processed what he was looking at, the object began drifting away into the distance until it eventually disappeared from sight completely. Metal orb. Back in 2009, a man in Brazil filmed a strange metallic sphere moving across the sky. The object looked perfectly smooth and completely round, almost like polished metal reflecting the sunlight around it. What really unsettled people was the way it moved. The orb traveled steadily through the air with a level of control that made it feel deliberate, not like something drifting naturally. Some people who studied the footage believed the object wasn't just passing through the area. They thought it was observing the ground below it before eventually continuing on its way. Do you agree? Comment down below. Balcony sighting. A man in Moscow stepped onto his apartment balcony one evening, expecting nothing more than a quiet view of the city. Instead, he looked up and froze. Between the clouds above the buildings, across from him was a huge UFO object hovering in the sky. It was close enough and visible enough that the shape stood out immediately. He stayed on the balcony watching it for several moments before it slowly disappeared back into the cloud cover. Rotating lights. This next clip is genuinely hard to explain. Floating in the night sky was a dark object, surrounded by bright white lights arranged around its edges. But the strange part was the movement. The lights weren't fixed in place. They kept rotating around the object in a smooth, circular pattern the entire time. And the longer you watch it, the less it resembles anything familiar. No moves like that, and no aircraft lights behave that way either. So what then? I'm asking all of you to help me out here. Thanks! V formation. This older clip recently resurfaced online, and people still cannot agree on what it actually showed. A man named Hunter Miller was standing out in a field near Amarillo, Texas, when he noticed something massive moving across the sky above him. It had a clear V shape to it and traveled in a way that instantly caught his attention. Some viewers believe it was a UFO without question. Others think there has to be another explanation. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. Unbelievable capture. A group of friends were stranded beside the road, dealing with a broken-down car, when something above them suddenly pulled all of their attention away from the vehicle. Moving through the clouds overhead was a dark disc-shaped object traveling steadily across the sky. It wasn't darting around or trying to hide either. If anything, it moved with this strange calmness that made the whole moment feel even more surreal. The group could only stand there and watch it pass overhead, while the object continued on its path, completely unaffected by anything happening below. Cube in sky. A man in Medellin, Colombia looked up and spotted something moving through the sky that immediately made him stop recording everything else around him. Floating overhead was a dark object with a shape that looked almost cubic, not round, not triangular. Sharp edges visible enough that the outline stood out clearly against the sky. And that's what made the footage so strange. Most sightings people report are blurry lights or distant shapes. This thing actually looked structured. To this day, he still has no idea what crossed above Medellin that night. Nevada static. A man's driving alone on a dark Nevada highway, late enough that there's not another car in sight. Then, something comes sweeping down over his car, and before he can even process what just happened, his radio cuts completely dead. What replaced it was static, but not the normal kind. It was layered, almost rhythmic, like something was pushing through the frequency on purpose. His dashcam caught the whole thing on film. He kept driving because stopping felt worse, but whatever passed over him that night, it knew he was there. Before I show you what we found, if this video has made you question everything you thought you knew, hit that like button right now. It tells YouTube this story needs to be heard. And trust me, what I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes, this is the part that gets channels like ours shadow banned. Stay with me. Beach discovery. One night in Peru, a man headed toward the beach, expecting a normal evening. Instead, he spotted something that made him stop in his tracks. Down near the shoreline, a large truck carried what looked like a massive disc-shaped object. Even from far away, its curved metallic edges were visible under the lights. He pulled out his phone and started filming from a distance, clearly unsure of what he was looking at. And honestly, the stranger it looked, the less he wanted to get closer. Romania sighting. A man in Romania spotted something unusual drifting just above the rooftops near his neighborhood, and this one looked different from most sightings people usually talk about. The object itself appeared small and dark, but the strange part was the movement. It kept spinning the entire time, slowly rotating while traveling across the sky, almost like it was turning on an invisible axis. And now here's where it gets interesting. It wasn't moving fast at all. Whoever was filming had plenty of time to focus on it and watch the rotation clearly happen in real time.
Это реально, она огромная.
A journalist managed to get close enough to film what nobody was supposed to see, and that decision may have cost him everything. Somewhere in Russia, a craft came down hard, and by the time any footage surfaced, the area was already locked down tight. Hazmat suits, evidence markers, restricted tape forming a perimeter, doctors and specialists moving carefully between bodies on the ground, treating the whole scene exactly the way you'd treat a crime site where the evidence still matters. The Russian government said nothing publicly. Although they didn't acknowledge it, they didn't deny it either. The journalist was there early enough to capture it all on camera before authorities noticed him. When they did, they moved fast. He was told to leave and informed that his camera would be confiscated. What they didn't know was that his phone was synced to the cloud, and everything he'd filmed had already been uploaded before they got their hands on it. He never got that phone back. People who knew him started saying they couldn't reach him. The footage survived because of a cloud backup and a few seconds of luck. They lied. For decades they lied, and now you know. If this opened your eyes, share this video with someone who still believes the official story because the truth deserves to be heard. Brazilian disc. Back in 1992, people in Brazil witnessed something that still feels difficult to explain. A gigantic disc-shaped object was seen being moved across an open tarmac while locals walked alongside it, helping guide the transport. The footage looked surreal. Cars surrounded the object while people casually moved beside something that looked completely out of place. And I'll tell you why this clip stood out so much. None of the people helping seemed like military or officials. No clear explanation was ever given about who organized the operation, where the object came from, or where it was headed afterward. Sky formation. People across Mexico looked up one evening and saw lights spread across the sky in a formation nobody could explain. They didn't resemble planes, they didn't move like satellites either. Then, out of nowhere, one of the lights suddenly shot upward at a speed that completely stunned everyone watching. And I'll tell you why this clip stuck with people. The movement didn't look random. It almost felt intentional. A lot of viewers believe the single light breaking away from the group meant there was more happening in that sky than anyone understood at the time. Metal structure. A strange video, uploaded from an unknown source, showed a metallic object hovering silently in the sky, and nobody has managed to figure out where it came from or who even recorded it. The object itself looked incredibly unusual, covered in mechanical-looking panels, protruding parts, and uneven structures across its surface. It almost resembled something unfinished or engineered for a purpose nobody understood. Farmland figures. In this unsettling clip, a man had no idea what was happening just outside his own property. He went to bed without a second thought. His camera, though, saw everything. Two tall, slender figures standing at the edge of his field, caught on timestamp, right beside a blinding flash of light. They weren't running or hiding, just standing there, completely still, like they were studying the land. By morning, there was nothing left. No marks, no trace, nothing to prove the night had happened at all, except the footage. Venezuelan Park Explained. You won't believe what a night vision camera picked up deep inside El Avila National Park on January 3rd, 2026, just after 2 in the morning. The footage was pulled from a moving train, and in that green-tinted darkness, small figures are visible moving along the ground outside. Not like animals move, and not like people move either. Nobody on that train noticed anything. The recording sat unreviewed for days before someone actually looked at it. People are 100% convinced this was extraterrestrial, and looking at this footage, it looks like the mystery of Venezuelan Park might have been solved. Do you agree? Then comment below. Miami escort. Back in 2017, some people in Miami started filming something strange moving through the city at night. A huge flatbed truck rolled down the road carrying a massive circular object hidden beneath a blue tarp. Even covered up, the shape underneath looked unusual, almost perfectly disc-shaped. And of all things, the transport had vehicles surrounding it on every side like it needed protection. Some people believed the government was secretly moving a recovered craft. Secret in Nevada. Drivers near Area 51 in Nevada spotted something that instantly got people talking. Rolling down the highway in broad daylight was a flatbed truck carrying a huge disc-shaped object. And not just anywhere. This was right outside one of the most secretive military sites in the world. The shape under the transport looked hard to ignore. Wide, metallic, almost exactly how people imagine a UFO would look. Glowing object. A worker heading home late one night looked up and noticed strange lights moving through the clouds above him. At first, it resembled distant lightning, but after a few seconds, he realized the glow wasn't behaving normally at all. The light kept shifting behind the clouds, almost like something enormous was hidden up there. Then suddenly, for a brief moment, he caught sight of it, a massive disc-shaped object hanging in the sky. He had no idea what he was looking at or what the object was doing there. Golden ring. A man in Colorado looked up and immediately stopped walking. Hanging above him was a massive ring-shaped object glowing with golden lights around the entire edge, and the strange part was how still it stayed. He kept filming, waiting for it to move, probably expecting it to disappear at any second. Instead, it slowly lifted higher and higher until it slipped straight into the clouds and vanished completely. Low-flying disc.
Ariel, mira eso.
A driver was heading down a quiet road one evening when he noticed something glowing above him. At first, he probably thought it was a helicopter or maybe a drone. Then he realized it was way too close and way too strange. Hovering above the road was a bright disc-shaped object moving smoothly through the sky, almost like it was following him. And honestly, that steady movement made the whole thing worse. He kept watching in shock until the object suddenly climbed higher into the sky and disappeared straight into the darkness, leaving him with absolutely no idea what had just passed over his car.
¿Qué mierda es eso?
Jersey disc. Drivers on a highway in New Jersey suddenly noticed something dark moving across the sky above them. Within minutes, people were slowing down, pulling over, and stepping out of their cars just to get a better look. Hovering overhead was a large disc-shaped object moving steadily through the night. And now here's where it gets interesting. The object stayed visible for a while before eventually disappearing completely, leaving behind dozens of confused witnesses trying to figure out what they had just seen above the highway. Orange cluster. One night in Canada, people noticed several glowing orange lights hanging above the tree line deep over the woods. The lights weren't drifting or spreading apart randomly. They held their positions almost too perfectly, like they were part of something coordinated. Then, one by one, they started disappearing. Search beam. Back in 2008, A camper deep in the woods noticed a strange orange glow above the tree line while settling in for the night. Hovering over the forest was a large disc-shaped object glowing against the darkness. But what really made the moment unsettling was the beam coming from underneath it. A steady light stretched down into the woods below, slowly sweeping across the ground almost like something was searching the area. The object stayed there for several moments, holding its position above the trees, while the beam continued scanning below. Then, eventually, it lifted higher into the sky and disappeared into the darkness without a sound. Angular craft. This footage has been spreading online for a while now, and people still cannot figure out what exactly was filmed that night. Moving across the sky was a strange angular shape lined with glowing orange lights around its edges, not blinking randomly either. The lights formed a clean pattern that looked intentional, almost like the outline of the object itself was being traced in the dark. And honestly, that shape is what throws people off the most. Orb. In America, sometimes the strangest footage comes from people who weren't even trying to film anything unusual. A woman and her husband were outside in Tampa, Florida, recording the bright afternoon sky when something small appeared moving through the clouds in the background of the footage. It wasn't drifting with the clouds or changing direction like a bird. It moved with this smooth, controlled pace that immediately stood out once they noticed it. Twin lights. This happened in February 2026 in Irving, Texas, where a man looked into the night sky and realized he was staring at two separate glowing crafts hovering at the same time. One burned with a green glow, the other shined red. Both were completely silent. For several moments, neither of them moved at all, just hanging there against the darkness like they were observing something below. Then, one of the objects finally began drifting away, and the person filming instinctively followed it with the camera. But of all things, the second the camera turned, the other light vanished. Blue column. A camper deep in the woods noticed something strange moving above the tree line while settling in for the night. High above the trees was a faint blue light stretching vertically through the darkness, not wide like a beam, thin, almost pillar-like. It moved slowly across the sky with a steady glow that never flickered or changed intensity. The camper kept searching the area around him, trying to find some normal explanation for it. It simply continued gliding over the forest until it eventually disappeared beyond the trees, leaving the woods dark and silent again. Highway convoy. Something enormous was being hauled down an open Nevada highway, and people had no idea what to make of it. Dozens of flatbed axles locked together just to carry the weight of it, police escorts clearing every lane ahead. Bystanders lined the barriers, phones up, completely silent as it rolled past. Nobody was talking, nobody was joking. The sheer scale of what was underneath those tarps made grown adults just stop. Whatever was on that convoy, it wasn't anything built in a factory we know about. Parking lot visitor. This guy drove out to Walmart late at night and found it closed, standard enough. But when he turned around, the sky above the parking lot wasn't empty anymore. Something enormous was just sitting there, dark, silent. Rows of bright blue lights wrapped around its entire body. The store underneath it looked small. He froze. His instincts said run, but nothing happened. It just hovered there like it was watching, then eventually, it wasn't there anymore. He drove home shaking, but alive, which is honestly more than he expected.
Wow!
Mysterious signal in Brazil.
Wow! ¿Qué es eso?
Manches, ¿qué es eso?
You won't believe what an entire town in Brazil witnessed together back in 2009. Just above the tree line, as evening was settling in, a perfect ring of glowing lights appeared, and just stayed there. The whole town came outside and watched, long enough that nobody could pass it off as a plane or a flare. What struck people most wasn't just the lights themselves, it was the formation they held, so precise and so patient that the town started believing this wasn't accidental. Whatever was above those trees that night, it seemed like it wanted an audience. Miami's chaos. I promise you, you've never seen a city block lose its mind quite like this. 75 police units descended on Miami's Bayside Marketplace in one night. Crowds came running out of the mall in every direction, and someone caught the whole thing from above. Authorities shut the story down almost immediately, which would have worked, except the footage keeps coming back. People aren't letting this one go because the official explanation never actually explained anything. Whatever triggered that response that night was big enough to bring out half the city's police force. Alien returns in mall. And then this footage came out from inside the mall, and everything got worse. A figure moving through the corridor, tall, shaped in a way that doesn't match anything human, caught clearly enough that you can't write it off as a shadow or a blur. Authorities had already closed the book on that night outside, but this was inside. Same location, same night, something that moved like it had every right to be there. Dismissing the outside was easy. This one's a lot harder to walk away from. Miami's gray. This one surfaced in 2024, and people genuinely couldn't handle it. Same city, same general area, and this time the footage is clear enough that there's nowhere to hide from what it's showing. A pale, gray figure, large dark eyes, upright, moving through the space like it had been there 100 times before. And here's what makes this harder to brush off. This is now the third separate video from the same location. 3 sightings, 3 clips, all Miami, all Bayside. At some point, you have to stop calling it coincidence and start asking a different question entirely. Tree line alien. I promise you, nothing can prepare you for what this hiker accidentally caught in the woods. Something moved at the edge of his vision, and he spun around just fast enough to get it on camera. The footage is rough, but what's in it is clear enough. A figure on 2 legs, moving through dense woodland at a speed that no human body is capable of. No animal runs upright like that either. It cut between the trees and vanished completely, never slowing, never hesitating, like it knew those woods far better than he did. Brazil quarantine. In this unsettling clip, a quiet village in Piauí, Brazil, had its entire night rewritten in a matter of hours. Glowing orbs appeared over the rooftops, and residents followed them through the streets on foot, phones out, completely gripped. 3, maybe 4 of them drifting silently across the sky. But the lights were just the beginning. Witnesses say the crafts came down, and that whatever was inside them came out. By the time anyone could process what was happening, every road into that village was sealed off. The whole area went under quarantine, and the people inside it had no choice but to wait. Chile visitor. A family pulled up to their beach house in Chile after a long time away, and something was already there waiting. Standing near the edge of the property was a figure, tall, dark, thin, with a large round white head, just facing them. Not reacting, not moving, just standing like it had been there a while. They managed to get it on camera before it eventually moved off into the dark. But the question that's been sitting with everyone who's watched this footage is a simple one. How long had it been standing there before that family showed up? Campsite face. I promise you, nothing these campers packed prepared them for what came out of those trees. Strange noises started pulling at the edges of their campsite, and someone went to check. What they found was a face, pale, large-headed, with glowing eyes looking straight back at them from between the trunks. Both sides just stayed there, completely still, watching each other in the dark. Then it stepped back and the woods swallowed it whole. No sound, no direction, just gone. Those woods haven't been searched since, and honestly, maybe that's the right call. Backyard stare encounter. You won't believe what a security camera picked up in a backyard in Valle Hermoso, Mexico. Black and white footage, but the figure standing among the parked cars is clear enough to make your stomach drop. Round head, narrow chin, 2 wide dark holes where the eyes should be, exactly the way people have been describing these beings for decades. It stood completely still and stared directly into the lens. Researcher Jaime Maussan reviewed the clip personally and called it genuine extraterrestrial evidence, even pointing out a visible reflection caught in the creature's eyes. That detail alone is hard to shake. Alien crashes. In this unsettling clip, an entire Indian village had their afternoon stopped cold when something fell out of the sky into a nearby field. They rushed over and found a silver disc-shaped craft buried in the dirt, smoke still curling off it. Lying beside it was a gray-green figure, clearly not human, unconscious in the grass. Nobody touched it. Nobody knew what to do. People just gathered and stood there in silence, watching. What happened after that has never been made fully clear, and the people who were standing in that field that day are still waiting for an answer that hasn't come. Alien in backseat. This Uber driver thought he was having the most normal night of his life. Pulled over near a Nevada highway, grabbed dinner, got back in the car, made a phone call, routine. Then something made him turn around and look at the back seat. A gray figure, wide, dark eyes, completely silent, just sitting there behind him like it had been there the whole time. He got out of that car fast. When he came back to check, the seat was empty. Nothing there, nothing left behind. Just the memory of whatever had been sitting inches away from him all along. Highway abduction. In this unsettling clip, a police officer was running a routine patrol down a lonely highway late at night when he spotted a car sitting on the roadside and slowed down to check on it. Then, a flash of light hit the darkness, sudden and total, and whatever happened inside that moment, nobody could see it. When it was over, the officer was simply gone. The driver of that parked car tore away in terror. No explanation was ever filed that satisfied anyone who looked into it, and the people who know this case well have long stopped believing it was anything routine. Like this video, subscribe to Weird or Wild, and join the family that questions everything. Until next time, stay weird, stay wild, stay wow.